All right, hello and welcome everybody. 7.0 is getting closer, the next major expansion for Star Wars The Old Republic, Legacy of the Sith as they call it. And as you saw, I already actually did have at least one update video already on that. So I thought I'd make another update video talking a little bit more, going over a bit about some of the information that's already out there, give you a general idea of what's going on, what some of my major thoughts are on some of these changes. I know a lot of people have been posting other content, so really I want to make this more of an opinion piece as well as sharing some of the news. So it's been exciting how many developments they've had recently. So we already knew some major exciting changes were coming out. The changes to combat styles and loadouts. So the general idea now being that they want to give you the ability to use one character who's a Force user and be able to play any of the Force classes in the game, be able to swap between them freely without having to log in, make an alt, that you play each one. So currently under the current system, every class that I want to play, I need to have a character that has that class, and then I choose what specialization I want. Now, within that class, I can freely change those specializations. It takes a fair bit of work. I have to move buttons around. I have to change gear depending on how compatible they are with each other. So loadouts is supposedly going to fix all that and change all that. So basically, I can stay logged into the same character, and all I have to do is say, I don't feel like playing my DPS Sentinel right now. I'd rather play my Sage Healer. Boom, just select the loadout for that. Or say that suddenly you want to be tanking with a Shadow Assassin tank. Boom, just there you go. Select the option, and now you're fully set up. You're ready to go. I'm also excited to see if loadouts will allow me to have, say, one character who only does tanking, and I can switch between different tanking setups. It'd be really cool. I'm not totally sure. We haven't seen what loadouts actually look like. They're not on the PTS yet, public test server. So yeah, not too sure, but it's one of the most exciting features that I'm looking forward to. And it's going to really change a lot. It's going to be cool too that now you can say, I want to enjoy, say, the bounty hunter storyline, but for whatever reason you don't want to play it as a bounty hunter. You might want to play it as a sniper because you feel like a sniper is just the type of bounty hunter you want to be. It's totally your option now. So there's a lot of cool stuff for the players who like to roleplay, who like to, have that head cannon. I think overall this is a great change. I'm really looking forward to a lot of this. And that's one thing that I'm absolutely pumped about and psyched about. Obviously, we're going to get some new story content. We're getting Manaan. The world of Manaan is going to be expanding, and we're going to be getting a lot of new content there. Don't know exactly what it looks like. There's going to be a daily area from what I've heard, as well as the open world aspect of the planet that you can run around just like other planets you can now. So I think it'll be a little bit more than what Dantooine has to offer, which is only coming around for the Pirate event. And it's going to be more like a normal planet, plus having a daily area introduced. Hey, that's what it seems like we're going to be getting. So that's good. Now, there's quite a few other changes, of course, that they're going to be making. They're making some changes to Conquest system. They want to make it a little bit harder to get your Conquest. It's funny, they ended up making the system for Conquest stupid easy. Like, oh man, even 2 years ago, Conquest was really hard. It took hours just to get the 50k conquest that you had to get on your character, and then through two major updates to the conquest system, they made it trivial, and you could get your personal conquest in minutes, allowing players to gain a lot of resources very quickly, selling off the materials from the conquest bonus, especially if you're in a guild and meeting the guild invasion target, stuff like that. So they're removing a bunch of different things. They're going to remove the credits that are rewarded from hitting a conquest bonus objective. They're going to remove the experience from it, and they're also going to be potentially nerfing the total rewards that they give for hitting your conquest target and potentially even the guild conquest target. They're talking about removing some of those things like solid resource matrix are going to get bumped off. So yeah, there's some changes to Conquest. It's going to be a bit harder. It's not going to make the system worse in my opinion, but it will mean that it's going to take players a bit more work to be able to actually get their Conquest on multiple tunes to get tons and tons of rewards to allow them to quickly get a lot of credits by selling those parts, or of course upgrading your guild flagship if that's what you're looking to do. As much as it's a negative impact for me, because I'm still working on upgrading a guild flagship myself personally, I think this is good for the health of the game. I think it's a good thing that they're going back to making Conquest a little bit harder to make, so that you can't just sit down and in 2 hours have Conquest on 7 of your alts. Like that's how the current system is. The current system is if you really want to spread it out, you can do 2 or 3 alts in about half an hour per day, and then just wait for those things to reset for the next day. So you can stock up some reputation. Maybe you have a stronghold room to open up. There's a few other big ticket items, some crafting sometimes, doing the daily area CZ198. I've got a bunch of stuff that I do. And I can just get 3 tunes, hit their conquest so quick every day. And then after that, potentially slow down a little bit. And still, I've got some other tricks that I can still grind out conquest super easy if I really wanted to. Every tune I can do in less than 20 minutes if I want to. I can do every single character 20 minutes or less, no matter what kind of idea, as long as I'm a little careful with planning. But they just made it too easy. So I'm happy to see that. I think overall it's a positive change. I didn't even realize I was getting credits every time conquest objectives were being popped. So I'm not going to miss them, but some people might. They're kind of hoping that will combat some of the inflation, but I don't know exactly how the credit spammers or sellers manage to farm with their bots or automated system to farm so many credits. So I'm not really sure exactly how effective they're going to be at plugging the holes that are really causing too much credits to enter the system. But they do need to reduce the amount of credits that players are getting through legitimate means anyways, because players definitely are able to get just a few too many credits somehow when they really know what they're doing throughout the game. But majority of the inflation and the majority of the credits in the game are really about players are already filthy rich. There's already way too many credits in the system. And once they started introducing the OEM RPMs and the gold dogs with 6.3, whatever it was, in the current augment tier, that really allowed that wealth to start moving around. Wealth started transferring between people. Suddenly, way more people had credits to spend than ever before, because the super wealthy were suddenly spending, tens of billions of credits to get these augments. So now we were seeing wealth being spread out over more people, which meant that more people had the ability to buy cartel market items, etc. Prices went up. I've also heard a lot of people make theories that the changes to the referral system and the amount of cartel coins and Galactic Seasons introducing cartel coins on a different path, a lot of people seem to think that the supply side of things for cartel market items has also shifted. They feel like, hey, there's a lot less cartel coins floating around somehow, a lot less cartel markets out there, so prices went up because less people were listing. I don't know. That could be true, and that could be one of the factors, but it's not the only factor on its own. I definitely know that there's a lot of inflationary pressures from people just having more credits available to them and spending those credits out in the economy. So definitely, the consumer demand is there, or the supply of credits is there, increasing prices. And then potentially might be quite true that the cartel market items, that, supply of all that has gone down. So having that supply demand imbalance has created a lot of inflation. So we'll see. I don't think they're going to do a lot that's going to be super effective at combating inflation, but we'll see. So that a little off tangent there, but I brought it up because they really focused on explaining some of the conquest changes being based around this idea that, yeah, inflationary pressures, conquest is causing some of this. We're removing some of these things on conquest to help combat inflation. So that's where I get that from. But they're really focusing on saying the conquest system is creating a lot of inflation, and they're doing specific changes to try and mitigate that inflation. And that was kind of my thoughts on it. So I think everything's going to help, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near enough. And I think they really do need something else. I'm not sure if they have other things they're just not telling us about because they don't want the people who have the bots farming credits to learn about it. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. So yeah, we've got loadouts coming. That's going to be a great thing. The fact that, of a Republic Force user can use Dark Side once you get to Dark Alignment 5. That's going to be super cool. Same thing with Imperial. Once you get to Light Alignment 5, you can switch over to being the Republic version of a Force user, or the light-sided version of Force user. So I love the fact that, you can be a Sith and you can choose to go light side, and you'll actually become all the light side abilities. Same thing with, like the Jedi who turn to the dark side suddenly can use lightning, So that's super exciting, super cool. Now let's recollect my thoughts and think about what else is changing. So we've got the daily area, some new content. The new operation is not coming out right away. So they're hoping to have the new operation out in January of 2022. So basically a month after the release 7.0, which is slated for holiday of 2021. So, sometime around Christmas time is when they're hoping to get it out. And the operation they're hoping to get out a month later. So I'm not crossing my fingers. I'm not holding my breath for the new operation to be out right away. We'll see. It could be pretty buggy when it comes out. They might rush it a little bit. I'm hoping that they don't rush it too much just to hit a deadline. But at the same time, I'd love to see content coming out at a nice pace that really makes it enjoyable to keep playing the game as somebody who's already gotten too many hours into the game. I'm over 2,000 hours played in the game. So yeah, there's a lot of things that I like doing for content that there's nothing left anymore. I've done them so many times. So that's where we're standing with the operation. It's a bit delayed. We'll see when it comes out. Definitely looking forward to it. Now, gear change, how you're going to get your gear. So this is really big. They've talked about a lot of changes upcoming with the gear. Gearing up is a big aspect of the content in an MMO. Grinding for gear, getting that new level cap, regrinding all your gear. We love it and we hate it at the same time. So obviously it's frustrating to be like, oh, now I got to redo all my gear. I got to gear up all my tunes, all my alts. But at the end of the day, a lot of us like grinding. Grinding is something that we choose to do and we want to do. We do find some enjoyable aspects about grinding. So the grinding system that they're going to be introducing, that's going to be something that, as much as players are complaining and we hate it and we don't like the fact that for those of us who have fully geared up tunes, we're going to have to start again, we're still going to be doing it. You want to get the best gear, you want to grind up, it's going to provide content. So how's that going to look and how's that going to feel to play through? Well, the first thing that I do find really interesting, that I do kind of like, is the fact that they're now going to create different tiers of gear for doing operations, item ratings, basically. So they're saying there's going to be a max item rating you can get by doing more or less any content in the game, whether that be story mode operations, doing your conquest objectives, your weekly, daily, heroic, doing flashpoints, and that's, I believe it's going to be 326. I think 326 is kind of the baseline. Everybody can get there no matter what. And then after that, they're going to be saying, I can't remember if master mode flashpoints, I think those are also 326, and I think you have to start doing operations to get any higher. I can't remember for sure, but veteran operations are going to be 328, master mode operations are going to be 330, and then when the new operation comes out, any operations that come out after the launch of 7.0, those will have an even higher item rating, and they start at, I believe it's 228 for story mode, or is it higher? And then veteran mode is going to be 330 to 334. So the best gear is going to be locked behind that. Now, they have been very cautious to clarify that a lot of these things that they're doing with gearing that are going to lock players out if they're not doing these will kind of, as the patch comes along, will be solved. So initially they're going to have this gearing tier, and they're going to say, if you want to have the modifiable gear and you want to customize all the pieces, you need max item rating, which involves doing only the new op to get up to max item rating. But they're saying that as more patches come out and as they raise the item level rating, that you'll be able to unlock those as well, as the item rating level will get bumped up for all content. So the ops are still going to provide the highest of the highest, but everything else will now be able to reach higher than they used to be at the beginning of 7.0. So there's going to be lots there for players, so don't be too afraid of these changes in terms of feeling like you're going to be completely left out. You are going to be left out a little bit at the beginning of the patch, no doubt about it, but they're also trying to make sure that all the content is balanced in such a way that the gear is still totally adequate, that you're able to farm for the content you're doing. So yes, it's frustrating as a player to say, oh, I really want to get max item rating, I want to get max gear, and I can't get it. That's a bit of a bummer, but at the same time, your gear is still going to be really good for the content you're doing, and you're not going to be finding that, oh, I can't progress through content because I just can't farm good enough gear. That's kind of where they're coming from. That's where they want to be. So in terms of how enjoyable the grind is going to be, it's interesting. It's weird. They've got legendary items, which will act like set bonuses. There's going to be 2 legendary items that you get to equip at a time. One is supposed to be more combat focused, while the other is more utility based. And you're going to have your tacticals, as far as we know. That's what it sounds like. They're going to modify a lot of them. Some of them might be gone or changed completely. They'll be moved to legendaries. And so this will be the idea, is you, instead of farming a whole set of set bonus gear, you're going to be focusing on getting your 2 legendaries with the descriptors you want, the abilities you want, And then after that, everything is going to be focused around just upgrading the item rating of your gear. So instead of saying constantly picking up gear, swapping it out, and this and that, for the most part, it sounds like it's going to be more system of saying put on your gear and then just upgrade the item ratings. So there's going to be a couple ways that this is going to happen. Either they're going to be giving you the option to do content that allows you to get a guaranteed upgrade on your lowest item rating piece. So whatever's your lowest item rating gets a boost immediately just from completing that piece of content. And that's going to be time gated, limited to how many times in a week. You could potentially get another piece that is a higher item rating than what you're currently wearing, and I swap it out. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it sounds like there's going to be something where you just get an upgrade piece or a side grade piece and you just swap them out, like more traditional system. And then the other big thing is going to be the ability to upgrade stuff. So you can basically get a bunch of different currency. You go to a vendor and you say, I want to upgrade this piece, and they check, say, oh, you have all the right stuff that's required. Boom, there you go. So they've given you these ways of kind of just saying upgrade your existing gear rather than looking for new gear and constantly replacing. And they're also creating all these currencies, so it's a bit weird. Compared to what I'm used to. Not horrible. I think it'll be okay. The thing I don't like too much is that they're creating these different tiers of gear. They're saying, here's your conquesting gear, here's your flashpoint gear, here's your operations gear, and they've kind of made them separate. But they did have a post that clarified today, saying, or maybe it was yesterday, saying when you get into operations, that your conquest flashpoint gear can be upgraded, continue to be upgraded from that path. Like it's going to be PvP gear, so I'm not totally sure how much you have to keep track of the different streams. Doesn't sound too bad based on the clarification posts they've made. So yeah, fingers crossed that it's not going to be too crappy. I would assume that you're going to have to farm multiple sets of gear for being able to do your loadouts and change out, but I think that overall that won't be as important as we see in the current system, especially since I would think it would be more about getting the legendaries and the tactical that's appropriate and swapping those around. I think it's going to be more that's what you're looking at swapping, and the majority base of your gear stays the exact same, unless of course you need gear with significantly different stats. So, if you're hitting way different alacrity thresholds or for whatever reason accuracy, well, I guess there's a reason for accuracy. Healers and tanks usually don't use it, and damage dealers do. So yeah, we'll see. I think overall the gear grinding is going to feel reasonable. It looks like it's going to be a system that's kind of similar to what we saw with the tech frags, with the item rating bump up, just grind your way through. But they've definitely tried to make it a system where they're like, we want to try and slow it down a little bit. We want to try and make it take a little bit longer to get to that item rating. And the fact that we're locking the highest item rating behind operations is really going to be a point of contention for some people. Some people will be very annoyed because it takes a lot of time and effort to do operations to upgrade your gear. And if they are saying all the other content in the game is going to be balanced such that you can do that content without needing operations level gear and just that item rating 326, then I'm not really too concerned. If I can go into a veteran mode operation and I can clear with a skilled group in a veteran mode operation who are all wearing item rating 326, I'm going to be totally fine with the fact that to farm those higher item ratings, I need to be doing challenging operations and I need to be repeating them. Fine by me, But if they're going to say you're going to come into these operations and you're going to find that your gear feels totally inadequate to try and farm that next level of gear, I'm going to be annoyed. Because, yeah, they shouldn't be telling me that to be able to even do these operations, I need to farm the gear in the operations that are too hard to do. That would be dumb. So I'm not expecting anything too crazy that's going to make me upset, annoyed, whatever. Overall, yeah, gear grinding, I think that it's going to provide us with a bunch of content. As much as we hate doing it, I don't think it's going to be something that will ultimately, say I'm going to quit the game over. Like, I think people are going to do it. Even if they're a little annoyed, they'll still enjoy it a little bit, because why else would we play if we didn't like a little bit of grinding in there? Definitely, though, I do feel bad for those players who really want to get to that max level gear, or at least be able to get the vendor unlocked who allows you to do the modifiable gear to customize stuff. And they're going to be locked out for a while if they're not doing operations. And especially, like the new operation is the only place you can get the highest item rating. That feels really frustrating that they're basically saying, come and refarm this operation over and over and over and over and over and over again to get max item rating. that really frustrates me that they haven't given us more operations and more places where we can farm that max item rating. If they were to change that, that would be something that I'd really like. All right, so gear grinding, that was a big topic, covered that because that is going to be a huge aspect of the update and one of the biggest things that's changing. And, a lot of controversy over that. So I've seen a lot of people claiming they're going to quit. Yeah, there's going to be a few people who quit, but overall, it's not going to throw away a lot of the player base. People love to say that and then actually not quit. So, yeah, calling some of those people out on being liars, but I think some of them are being honest, and they're just a very small amount of the player base, so it's not going to matter too much. So, what is it going to look like going into 7.0? What are we kind of thinking? So, obviously, we've already said we're going to have new content, we're going to have new stories, we're going to have the new combat style changes, we're going to have a new gearing system in place. They're going to rebalance stuff. A lot of stuff is going to become level 80. All operations are going to now be level 80 without the level scaling where you were synced to a lower level and locked in. PvP, there's going to be some changes too there. They're going to say, 326 is the current item rating cap that players can get through any option in the game. So everyone's going to be scaled down in PvP to that 326 item rating so that people who farm better gear in operations don't have an unfair gear advantage. And then there's going to be a minimum too that if you're below a certain item rating, it's going to bump you up to make sure you're not too far behind while doing PvP so that you can still do it on a lower level character while leveling up or gearing up or however you want to think about it. So, yeah, one of the other really big changes that's going to come to the content at how you play is more the weekly heroics, stuff like that. So they're making a big change. They really want to push this concept of having rotating content that is rewarded the best. So, it's going to be very similar to the Galactic Seasons idea, where they're basically going to say, this week, here's the content that we are going to reward you the best for doing. You can still do the other content, the rewards aren't going to feel that good. So it's up to you if you want to do them. But here's the 10 items or 7 items that we're pushing to say, do these. And that way, the idea is twofold. One is they're trying to get you to play content you wouldn't normally play. So Galactic Seasons did bring a lot of players into GSF who weren't used to doing GSF. I don't know how many players it brought into PvP. I heard that unranked Warzones, it did bring in quite a few players. So, they have some success by having this model of saying, try out this other content. You're not used to playing it, you don't usually like it, but we'll give you a really good reward if you do. And that does help players find out that maybe they don't hate it so much, or maybe they're a little more willing to play it. So they've kind of doubled down on that, and they've said, and then the other reason too why it's kind of a thing that they want to do is to have more players in the same area at the same time. So they want areas to feel a little bit more live, a little more interactive. They want it to feel like you're playing an MMO. So they do want to push players to try and be in the same area at the same time. Some players are going to hate this, some players are going to be just fine with it, and some players are really going to love it. So that's one thing that's interesting. I'm not a big fan at all of the fact that weeklies are going to reset their progress every single week. I don't know what's going to happen with that in terms of overall. I'm really annoyed though in general about that, especially, but we'll have to see if they're kind enough to take some of the weeklies and leave them be and let them keep your progress over a long period of time. Like I think about some of the specialty mounts where you have to kill certain bosses, or there's just a lot of weeklies that I don't actually end up finishing in a week. So those are things that I'm really hoping don't get reset on me regularly. Now, weeklies like Islecath weekly area, CZ198 weekly area, stuff like that, I don't mind that. That's fine, it's fairly easy, except some of them you do have to spread out over 2 days, and it's going to be a really big nuisance. It means that players can't do that little trick for boosting their conquest points by stacking up everything for a weekly early on before the reset, and then come reset, they can easily complete all these weeklies. Oh well, it's not the end of the world. All players are going to be hit the same way, so no. It just means that certain players won't have that little trick that helps boost themselves a little bit higher than other people, a bit faster. But at the end of the day, I don't think that's going to make or break the game, but I definitely feel like there's going to be potentially some issues there. They've got a few other exciting things, such as they're going to allow tagging of enemies in a way where basically if you see somebody fighting something and you start fighting it too, it's now going to consider both of you as fighting that enemy. Previously, it was based on whoever engaged a group of enemies first got all the credit, and everybody in the group could also share with them. That's something that's exciting and new. Certain world bosses and stuff, they are not going to allow this, so they're still going to say you have to be in a group for things like Nightmare Pilgrim, Dread 2, stuff like that. You have to be in that group or you don't actually get rewarded. And I think that's a good choice. I think there's certain content in the game where it doesn't make sense to say anybody who shoots at that enemy now gets to participate in that kill. Overall, I think it's going to be a great change to the game. Looking forward to it. I think it's going to make some very positives. So there we have it. Those are definitely not all the things, but those are a lot of the different things that are going to change about the game, how it's going to bring new content to you, things that you can think about looking forward to doing, or stuff that, maybe quality of life changes. Now, one thing that I want to talk about in a little bit more detail is some of the concerns over the direction of the game when it comes to combat styles, the changes to the class, and of course, how they're talking about difficulty levels. Is some of the classes are going to potentially be losing abilities, and there's a lot of times where they're going to make you choose and say, at certain levels, you have to choose which abilities you want. So there's going to be some weird things going on there where it's like, you don't get all your abilities. It's kind of like the utility system, but now they're also saying you've got to pick the utilities that you want, and on top of that, you've got to pick which abilities you want out of a few. So you're gonna get to keep a lot. And they're trying to simplify things. They've talked about removing things like interrupt and some other weird stuff. I'm a little concerned that they want to remove a little bit too much from the end game, from the mechanics. That they're going to basically say, we want to make this game very easy and approachable for players. We want to make it feel less like the MMO that it's been and have less mechanics. I don't know what's going to happen. I really hope that they still continue to have a system where those players who really want to challenge themselves with really hard content can still do so without making it, artificially hard on yourself. Yeah, so we'll see. I like the fact that as you keep playing the game, you start learning all these tips and tricks and, learning when to interrupt stuff, when to time defensives, when to do this and that. So I'm not sure how that's going to make the game feel, especially for the higher level players and more end game players. So we'll see. I think in general, the idea is they want to make it easier for newer players and players who are more casual, which that, isn't a bad thing, right? So I think that they've got some good things that they're going after there, and we'll just have to see if all of that turns out to be good stuff, or if that kind of becomes something where it's like, yeah, there's some good and there's some not so good about that. There are a few other things that you can kind of note. They're going to keep augments in the game the way they are. They currently have no replacement system for the augments, no new augments coming out. So right now, all the current augments are going to be there. They're going to be removing amplifiers. They don't like those. They're going to be removing renown crates. They don't like those. So there's a few changes here and there like that. Crafting is going to remain unchanged at the launch. They do have plans, of course, to move on to a new tier of crafting and stuff like that. But right now, we have no information other than it's going to be delayed and it's not going to come with the launch of 7.0. So you're not going to see any major shifts in terms of that. You're basically just going to see, yep, still get to use augments. They're still useful. You still want them. And augmentation kits will remain the same ones. And the nice thing now is that with the gear being more about upgrading existing gear, is we're going to be looking at a system where we can potentially be throwing in our augments immediately and then reaping the benefits right away and then just upgrading that gear, and you're not going to be wasting a bunch of augmentation kits. So I'm looking forward to that. Not wasting too many augmentation kits, throwing augments in my new gear that I'm getting. So that's cool. Amplifiers are gone. Yeah, so there's lots of little changes that are going to happen. I think for players who've been playing the game for quite a while, you're not going to see too many changes other than trying to figure out how the new gearing system works, the fact that there's some new content out there, and I think those are really going to be the biggest ones. And then, of course, huge benefit from doing loadouts, and we're going to be looking to figure out what are all the new best class rotations. People are trying to look into that on the public test server, see what their classes are going to look like and what the rotations are going to be. Of course, we don't know until final launch exactly what things are going to change from the public test server or not, and there's still a couple more public test servers to come out before final launch, so it could end up being that we do end up knowing all the main class rotations before 7.0 officially drops, or it might be something where we're still sitting there going, well, we got a decent idea of, some classes have changed, but we don't actually know completely what the changes are going to be. So here comes the part where I just want to mention again, making Star Wars content is definitely something that takes up a lot of time to be able to put out content, and hopefully it's quality content. A lot of my stuff doesn't even get many views. I do have some stuff that does really well and a lot of stuff that just flops and fails. I have no monetization from YouTube. I'm still working on getting enough watched hours from YouTube as well as hitting the 1,000 subscriber mark. So it's always really appreciated if you guys want to see me continue down this path of making content for this game and not giving up, to make sure that you are, doing the things like having a like, making sure you're subscribed, share it if you know people who might find this content useful. Let it play in the background on your web browser. You can mute it, whatever. Give me those hours watched that I need for monetization. And I do also have a Patreon, which I'll try and link in the description, or you can just search for my channel name. That's the Patreon link as well. So thank you very much for any of your support, which includes just watching right now. This is support for my channel and my videos. And as always, I hope that you have a wonderful day and see you in the next video.